I'm Corbett Wall with DB Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, August the 23rd, where auction receipts are starting to return to normal now. We've got more confidence coming back into the market. We've had some good support from your futures market this week following the debacle from last week, following the Tyson fire there at Finney County. But we're still going through all the trash that followed this. We're trying to see what happened. We're looking around, trying to find somebody to blame and something to do about it to prevent something like that happening again. And now that we're starting to get some bids on fat cattle closer to what we had before the fire happened, and now that our feeder cattle are starting to get back, closing the gap on what they were bringing before, and your board has been up, just like always, people are starting to kind of back off of it a little bit. You know, they always say that cattle feeders have the shortest memory of any person alive, and that goes on this deal too, because cooler heads have prevailed and people aren't too excited anymore. They did, NCBA did hold a conference call on Thursday evening there. I was not eavesdropping on the call, but did get a report from one of my contacts, and he said that they did have CattleFax in there giving a supply and demand model of the state of the industry and during all this that happened, but nobody really rose to the top of leadership and wanted to do anything about what happened and the big disparity between you know, your box beef cutouts rising sharply and your fat cattle going the other way, and all that money to be made in the middle, and you know who made it all. But there was no call for any push for an investigation on collusion or price gouging. That's what everybody was really hoping for, but nothing like that, and just kind of a ho-hum deal. And a few of the guys that got off the call were very disappointed, and they did not receive any real leadership in trying to take action on what had happened. But you saw Tyson, you know, they were the most affected by this fire. Of course, it happened at Holcomb, Kansas, at their facility there, and they've got to get in there and get that repaired. We still don't really have a timeline for when that will happen. You know, some people think they might be dragging their feet, but I don't think that's the case. They've been making good money with the way that they've colluded with the other packers and drove these box beef cutout values through the moon. But they still have formula cattle that they've got to get dead, and they're pushing for that. But as far as you know, having something bad happen to you and then something great returns, they had a fire that happened to them. Everybody thought that was bad, and then here on Thursday, less than 2 weeks from when the fire happened, Tyson's stock prices on the New York Stock Exchange trading at all-time record high levels. 91.66 points. That was up 2% on Thursday only. So hey, coming through this wreck pretty darn good, aren't Tyson? And they are so thankful of these all-time record high stock prices and the way everything's turned out from that unfortunate fire. They're so thankful that they've decided to hold Sunday services at their Lexington, Nebraska plant. Going to have all their employees come in, and they're going to be sacrificing steers and heifers. So that goes to show you how excited they are about the way things turned out. But look at the board on Thursday. August live cattle futures up $2.30 at 104.97, and that August spot market just soared. And so you're seeing 105 bids in the Southern Plains late in the week this week, and no way guys are going to take that with no basis there at all. They're going to want at least 108 and probably going to want 110. We'll see what happens, but the board will probably back up on a Friday like it typically does. October live cattle futures up 87 cents at 101.10. August feeder cattle up $1.02 at 138.40. It's pretty much right in line there with what your index levels are at. September up $1.12 at 136.42. Your fat cattle trade started to develop in the northern plains. We still haven't really established what the price level is going to be, but it's higher than last week, so starting to close that gap on the disappointing levels that we had before the fire. But Iowa had about 2,500 head confirmed sales there on Thursday, from 172 to 175 dressed. And then that would be steady to $3 higher than last week on the dress side. They had a few 107 to 110 on a live basis, but Iowa doesn't typically sell a whole lot live. Nebraska, about the same price levels, around 1,800 confirmed there. Probably a few more when they started coming around with that 175. They were trying to get things done with the 172 there for quite a while, but the southern plains, 105 bids, like I mentioned earlier, and that's not going to quite get it done. But you talk about Nebraska and up in the northern plains, you know, they had such a horrible winter, followed by such a wet and miserable flooding spring. And now hearing reports out of there, they did get a little bit relief there, and they got quite a bit of hay put up. And there's a lot of hay put up all over this country because they let their stocks get so low. People were just scrambling for hay, and it got way too expensive to be feeding the cows. But they did get a lot of hay put up, but now the rains have come back into Nebraska. Wish they'd send some of it down here to the southern plains. Texas Panhandle's dry as a bone. But they are starting to get rain again pretty well constantly in Nebraska, and central Nebraska is now up to 50 inches of rain this year, which is twice normal, and we've still got quite a ways to go. But look at your slaughter for the week, and everybody's been having such a fit about it. We can lose a major plant in the southern plains and still keeping up pretty good, but 462,000 through Thursday. That's 1,000 less than last week, and 8,000 less than the same week a year ago. But Saturday is when they pick it up. And they'll catch up a lot on Saturday because that's where we had room to do it. Not everybody was running on Saturday. Not everybody running full shifts on Saturday. But they're now doing it, so we'll see out with the estimate that comes out on Friday how close we get to year-ago levels. And I bet we get right back up there again, if not larger, because these plants are running full bore. I mean, Cassie Fish said they're running as wide open as they have since 2011, and I believe what she says because she's awfully good at what she does. But your actual slaughter data that come in for the week ending August the 10th showed that your weights on the average steer carcass weights are rising rapidly. 878 pounds, that's up 6 pounds from the previous report, and we're still current and we're still lighter than we typically are this time of year, but we're catching up fast, and it's not necessarily because we're not keeping up with our slaughter rates, because we absolutely are. It's this that we're starting to get into more cattle, and we've said it before, in the southern plains we're going to start getting into some of the largest supplies of market-ready cattle than we've ever had this time of year, because that's just the way it is. And then they're going to get heavier too in the northern plains, because they started to recover from all that mud and slop that they were dealing with in the spring, and guys started placing cattle, and then a lot of those are going to be getting ready. But talk about some other things. I told you guys that there was going to be some big sales next week, and some of my favorite sale barns have sent me information about that. I'll run through them real fast, and you guys can kind of get an idea where you can go to get some good cattle next week. Elgin, Nebraska, Ted Baum and company there, Monday the 26th. So, you know, this is the last report for this week till the summary. So Monday the 26th, this Monday, they're going to have a good run at Elgin, Nebraska. That's not too far off the Yellow Brick Road, just south of Highway 20 there, and on the eastern side of the state. About 1,700 head there, all yearlings, and about 600 of them right off grass. And you don't get that in that area this time of year that often, but going to have a nice offering of yearlings at Elgin, Nebraska. Fredonia, Kansas. You know, I talk about them all the time. They just continue to impress. They're having their anniversary sale on Tuesday of next week on the 27th. You guys be thinking about that. 3,000 head, and they'll mostly all be green grass yearlings. This will be some of the last of them in that part of the country, guys, so you want to get in on those in Fredonia, Kansas. Mocan Livestock in Butler, Missouri. The Herzogs are going to have a good sale there. They've got 2,000 or better scheduled for Thursday of next week, the 29th, right before the long Labor Day holiday weekend. So be thinking about those sales for places you can go and get some cattle next week before the Labor Day holiday, and things could be all different when we come back from there. But let's look at the sales that we had on Thursday there. Your real-time index on Cattle Market Central late in the day on Thursday at 138.66, up 9 cents. So it's been rising steadily. It rose big on Wednesday because of Bassett and some other big sales around, but still holding ground and gaining a little bit. But your big sales on Thursday, of course, Pratt, Kansas, Winter Livestock, 2,600 head there. Pretty good sale for them. Like I said, your auction receipts are returning. Feeders in Pratt, $7 to $10 higher than they were a week ago. And look at this outstanding sale they have here on Cattle Market Central. You can see this individual quote, 52 head of 961 pound steers in Pratt, Kansas, bring 142.75. That's pretty smoky. You go straight up from there to the north central part of the state in Kansas, Farmers and Ranchers Livestock in Salina, Kansas, about 2,900 head there. The market wasn't quite as easy to call there, but the market reporter called it $1 to $5 higher for the most part, with some spots of $3 lower on your biggest steers. And if you look at this market report, the automated report from Cattle Market Central, I can't really argue with that. I think they pretty much nailed it. That's what it looks like here if you're comparing those weighted average prices on those different weight groups to last week, and that's pretty much the way it was. But let's talk about some of these weight groups on your steers, the best tested. 7-weight steers, 340 head of them. They average 753 with a weighted average price of 146.35 on all the 7-weight steers. That's pretty good. 862 head of the 8-weight steers averaged 851 at 139.31, and 364 head of the 9-weight steers averaged 926 at 135.19. Look at one of the heifer groups there. 429 head of the 8-weight heifers averaged 854 at 131.08. And your big individual quote from Farmers and Ranchers in Salina, Kansas is 107 head of 823 pound steers bring $148. That's your feeder flash for Friday.